The staff at Beverly Hills' most prestigious jewelry store refused to serve 19-year-old Lisa Johnson, looking scornfully at her simple clothes and messy hair. None of them could have guessed that Silicon Valley's wealthiest tech genius, Richard Johnson, would walk through the door and take his daughter to buy 10 times the jewelry they refused to sell her somewhere else. The gleaming storefronts of Rodeo Drive sparkled brilliantly under the warm Los Angeles sun. Brilliance, the jewelry store, occupied the most ostentatious corner of the street, with diamonds in its windows seemingly dancing in the sunlight. This wasn't just a place for the wealthy, it was exclusively for the ultra-wealthy. Lisa Johnson peered through the store's window. With her plain jeans, simple white t-shirt, and sneakers, she looked completely different from the luxuriously dressed people around her. She had hastily pulled her hair into a bun and wore almost no makeup. The backpack hanging from her shoulder was an anomaly on Rodeo Drive, its Stanford University logo a quiet testament to her educational priorities. "It's Dad's birthday today," Lisa thought while examining the jewelry in the window. "I want to get him something special. It's always difficult to find a gift worthy of him." Lisa's father, Richard Johnson, was the founder and CEO of Novatech, one of America's largest technology companies. The firm was a world leader in artificial intelligence technologies and cloud services. Fortune magazine had placed him at the top of their 10 most influential people in Silicon Valley list. However, Lisa was determined to stand on her own feet rather than live in the shadow of her father's wealth. Richard had always raised her with this mindset. "True value lies not in what you have, but in who you are," he would say. Lisa was now studying computer engineering at Stanford University, an achievement she had earned through her own efforts, not her father's connections. She lived like an ordinary student on campus, and most of her friends didn't even know who her father was. Lisa took a deep breath and opened the door to the store. Stepping inside felt like entering a different world. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, velvet chairs. Everything exuded perfect luxury. Soft classical music complemented the sophisticated atmosphere. The jewelry displayed in glass cases gleamed with dazzling brightness under carefully positioned spotlights. Victoria Blake, Brilliance's sales manager, surveyed the new customer with her elegant black dress and perfect chignon. In her 40s, with sharp facial features and thin lips, she carried the self-confidence that came from years in the luxury sales sector. Her eyes scanned Lisa's simple clothes and she immediately made a judgment. "Just an ordinary college student looking for a gift," she thought. "Someone who will waste our time. Perhaps just a tourist who came in to look at expensive things." Victoria put on a professional smile and approached Lisa with elegant steps. "Welcome," she said with forced politeness in her voice. "How may I help you?" Lisa smiled sincerely, seemingly unaware of Victoria's coldness. "Hello. I'm looking for a special birthday gift for my father. Maybe a wristwatch or an elegant set of cufflinks. My father works in the technology sector, but he appreciates classic style." Victoria smiled slightly and interrupted Lisa. Her tone now had an obvious mockery. "Our watches start at $15,000, young lady. Our cufflinks begin at $5,000. You might prefer stores with more affordable prices. Perhaps you could find what you're looking for at the mall downtown." Ethan Fields, the sales consultant standing behind Victoria, in his early 30s with carefully styled hair and a bespoke suit, was the typical Rodeo Drive employee. When he heard Victoria's words, he smirked slightly and winked at the other employees. Lisa's cheeks flushed slightly. She wasn't accustomed to such treatment. At Stanford, everyone treated her equally. "Actually, price isn't an issue for me," she said politely. "I'm just looking for something worthy of my father. He's particularly interested in vintage-style watches. Perhaps you have such pieces in your collection?" This time Victoria laughed openly. She gave Ethan a meaningful look. "I understand," she said in a sarcastic tone. "And what does your father do?" "This technology sector you mentioned is quite a broad definition." Lisa hesitated for a moment. She had promised herself never to use her father's name or profession. The security guard at the door was now looking at her suspiciously. "He works in software and artificial intelligence," she said simply. "He always celebrates his birthday modestly, and this time I wanted to surprise him." "Software and artificial intelligence," Victoria repeated, emphasizing the words as if they were a joke. She elegantly clasped her hands in front of her. So, a computer repairman? Or perhaps a game programmer? Ethan chuckled and whispered to another sales associate passing by. First time I've heard of computer geeks shopping at Brilliance for birthdays. Maybe we should sell him a mousepad. Other customers in the store were now looking at Lisa. A woman in her 50s, adorned with designer jewelry and brand-name clothing, whispered something to her friend, and they both giggled. Lisa was feeling increasingly uncomfortable. Sweetie, Victoria said with fake concern, placing her hand on Lisa's shoulder. Perhaps you should check out the watch shops at Westfield Shopping Mall. They might offer options more suitable for you. You know, there are gifts for every budget. Lisa's eyes welled up. She wasn't prepared for such blatant humiliation. For a moment she considered defending herself, telling them who her father was. But no, that wasn't her style. I was just looking, she said in a low voice. Thank you for your help. Victoria extended her arm and pointed toward the door. I understand, but today we have reservations for our special customers. Perhaps another time. Then she lowered her voice and added, or maybe you could shop somewhere more appropriate for your age. Like the gift shop on the corner that has nice trinkets. Lisa nodded, words knotting in her throat. How could she be so humiliated? Her father had always taught her to show respect to everyone. Now here, on one of the world's most luxurious streets, she was practically being shown the door just because of her appearance. As she turned toward the door, she heard Ethan, phone in hand, talking to another potential customer. I'm afraid we're not available today. Please try making an appointment. Yes, we're currently serving our exclusive clientele. As Lisa left the store, she quickly pulled out her phone and texted her father. I'm at Brilliance Jewelry Store. Was trying to prepare a surprise for you, but they wouldn't let me in. No worries, I'll look somewhere else. After sending the message, she paused for a moment. Maybe she shouldn't tell her father about this situation at all. She knew Richard Johnson was a calm man, but when it came to injustice, especially toward his daughter, his reaction could be severe. Meanwhile, a man emerged from the Four Seasons Hotel at the corner of Rodeo Drive. The 52-year-old Richard Johnson was dressed simply as always, a plain blue shirt, relaxed fit jeans, and soft leather shoes. Unlike most successful business people, Richard disliked ostentation. Fortune magazine had described him as Silicon Valley's invisible giant. Despite his personal fortune of $30 billion, he preferred to live like an ordinary man. Richard looked at his phone. He read Lisa's message and frowned. This treatment of his daughter upset him. His daughter was his most precious possession in the world. After losing his wife to cancer, he had raised Lisa alone. He had raised her this way, modest, unpretentious, knowing her own worth. But people everywhere were judged by appearances, and this had always bothered him. He put the phone in his pocket and started walking toward Brilliance. He was actually in Los Angeles for a different purpose. He had come for the opening of a new Novatech research center. He had planned to celebrate his birthday in the city with his daughter. He didn't know Lisa was preparing a surprise for him. When he entered through the door, he saw Lisa about to leave the store. He immediately noticed the disappointment in his daughter's eyes. He recognized this expression. He had seen it on his wife during her final days of illness, when she no longer had the strength to fight. Lisa, he called out. Lisa turned, her eyes widening in surprise. Dad, what are you doing here? Richard smiled and walked toward his daughter. My meeting finished early. I thought we could spend my birthday together. I got your message. What happened? Lisa quickly hugged her father. In her father's arms, the feeling of humiliation from moments ago began to slowly dissipate. I wanted to make a surprise for you, but... She lowered her voice. I guess this place isn't my style. They didn't take me seriously. Richard stroked his daughter's hair. Lisa looked so much like her mother. The same warm brown eyes, the same determined jawline. After his wife's death, he saw a piece of her in his daughter every day. I understand, he said in a calm voice. It's okay. We can buy from somewhere else. But Lisa shook her head. No, Dad, this isn't right. They judged me by my appearance. This isn't fair. Richard squeezed his daughter's shoulder and turned to Victoria, who was still standing by the door, now with a slight expression of unease on her face. What seems to be the problem? I heard my daughter wasn't assisted. Victoria's eyes scanned Richard. Like Lisa, he too was simply dressed and unpretentious. No luxury brand logos, expensive watches, or designer accessories. Victoria thought to herself, like father, like daughter. Clearly people who don't know where to spend their money. I'm afraid we have a special event today, Victoria said in a formal tone. We can only serve customers with appointments. You know, our stores on Rodeo Drive get very busy. Richard laughed slightly and looked around. There were only a few customers in the store, all looking quite relaxed. Really? Have you canceled your appointment with Gregory Hamilton then? Victoria's face changed instantly. Gregory Hamilton was the owner and founder of Brilliance. He had been a longtime friend of Richard's, even one of Novatech's first investors. You know Mr. Hamilton? Richard nodded. Yes, he called me this morning to wish me happy birthday. He even knew my daughter Lisa would be coming here to prepare a surprise for me. I mentioned it to him last week when we had dinner in San Francisco. Ethan, standing next to Victoria, was now listening carefully. His hand was still on his phone, but for a different purpose now. He was quickly Googling Richard Johnson technology. When he saw the first results, he gasped, "Are you Richard Johnson?" Ethan asked, his voice trembling. "Richard Johnson of Novatech?" Richard turned to look at Ethan, a slight smile on his face. "Yes, I am Richard Johnson, and this is my daughter Lisa." All eyes in the store were now fixed on Richard. Ethan dropped his phone. Victoria's face turned pale. Other sales associates were now looking at each other with concern. The two customers who had belittled Lisa earlier now stood with their mouths open in astonishment. "Richard Johnson? The founder of Novatech?" Victoria said in a shaky voice. "The Richard Johnson who spoke at the Artificial Intelligence Conference, who was on the cover of Time magazine last week?" "Yes, that Richard Johnson," said Lisa, holding her father's hand tightly. She rarely used her father's status, but this time was different. There was a small sparkle of victory in her eyes. "I wanted to buy a birthday gift for my father. Something special worthy of him." Victoria rushed forward frantically. Her facial expression had completely changed. Now she wore an exaggerated smile. "Mr. Johnson, this is a huge misunderstanding. We are eager to help your daughter right away. Please let us show you our special collection. We actually have new pieces that aren't even in the display cases yet." Ethan also quickly stepped forward. "Mr. Johnson, I'm Ethan Fields. I'm a huge fan of yours. Your vision on artificial intelligence is truly inspiring. I watched your TED Talk last month. It was extraordinary." Victoria gave Ethan a stern look. "Mr. Johnson, please come in. It will be an honor for us to provide the best service to you and your precious daughter. Perhaps some champagne or coffee? What would you like?" Richard shook his head. "I think that won't be necessary. My daughter wants to look elsewhere." "Isn't that right, Lisa?" Lisa nodded. "Yes, I think we need to find a place with a warmer welcome." Victoria was panicking. As the sales manager of the most prestigious jewelry store on Rodeo Drive, she couldn't afford this kind of mistake. "Please, we made a big mistake. We'd like to show you our most special pieces. We would be happy to offer a special discount, sparing no expense." Ethan also jumped in. "Lisa, I'm really sorry. This is entirely my fault. Please give us one more chance." Richard raised his hand to stop them. "Send my regards to Gregory. Also tell him that Novatech will now prefer another jewelry firm for corporate gifts. Last year we bought $500,000 worth of items for our staff. Isn't that right, Lisa?" Lisa smiled. "Yes, Dad. Actually, it was exactly $580,000. But I had told you I wanted to work with authentic gems this year. They show the same respect to every customer, regardless of what they're wearing." Ethan looked like he was about to faint. $500,000? He whispered. This was almost half of his annual sales target. Sweat beads were now trickling down Victoria's face. "Mr. Johnson, please, we can resolve this misunderstanding. We are here to provide the best service to you and your valuable daughter." But Richard and Lisa were already heading for the door. Before leaving, Richard turned and surveyed the entire store. His voice was calm but powerful. The whole store could hear him. Judging people by their clothes is one of the biggest business mistakes in today's world. True value lies not in appearance, but in character. My daughter was raised according to these values, and I see that these values are not understood here. The other customers in the store were now looking at Victoria and Ethan with expressions of clear condemnation. Some had already started whispering. They turned away Richard Johnson. Did you hear how they treated his daughter? As they walked out the door, Lisa looked at her father. There was both pride and love in her eyes. Happy birthday, Dad. I'll find you a better gift. Richard smiled and embraced his daughter around the shoulder. I already received the best gift, Lisa, having raised a daughter like you. Your mother would be very proud of you, too. Lisa's eyes filled with tears at the mention of her mother. I wish she was still with us. She's always with us, Lisa. She lives in you. She was honest, humble like you, and never judged people by their appearances. Inside Brilliance, Victoria rushed to her office and closed the door. With trembling hands, she reached for the phone and called Gregory Hamilton. She was preparing for the worst day of her career. Losing the corporate shopping of a company like Novatech would seriously affect her annual targets. Even worse, Rodeo Drive's gossip mechanism had already begun working. Before evening, the entire street would be talking about how Richard Johnson had received poor treatment at Brilliance. As Richard and Lisa walked down Rodeo Drive, they looked at the luxury cars and ostentatious people passing by. The warm Los Angeles sun now seemed friendlier to both of them. You know, said Richard, when I was your age, I used to go around in an old t-shirt and torn jeans. When I went for a meeting to start my first company, they directed me to the back door of the building. The woman at reception didn't even believe I had an appointment. Lisa laughed. Really? You never told me that. Yes, that's when I made a promise to myself. If I became successful, I would never judge people by their appearances. He paused and looked at his daughter. I wanted you to grow up the same way. To know that character, not money, is what matters. Lisa nodded. Lesson learned, Dad. Now I know a really great place for your birthday. Where? Richard asked. Remember that small art gallery in Venice Beach? They have unique pieces made by local artists. Last time we went, you were drawn to a handmade sculpture. Richard smiled. Perfect. That's just our style. Then maybe we can walk on the beach and have dinner at your mother's favorite restaurant. What do you say? Sounds wonderful, said Lisa. Exactly the kind of day I wanted for my father's birthday. Father and daughter walked away from the ostentatious world of Rodeo Drive, heading towards a place with more intimate and genuine values. Behind them, in the most prestigious jewelry store in Beverly Hills, the echoes of Richard Johnson's visit still continued. And perhaps some people had learned a valuable lesson that day. True wealth lies not in the clothes you wear, but in the values you carry. 6 months later, a special event was held at the Venice Beach branch of Authentic Gems jewelry store. Richard Johnson was making his annual gift shopping for Novatech employees. The total order was $1.2 million. The store's owner, Rebecca Torres, was once an immigrant woman who had struggled financially herself. In her store, every customer was shown the same respect, regardless of their clothes or appearance. Lisa was there too, having completed her summer internship and about to start her second year at Stanford. She stood beside her father, approving his choices. As Rebecca showed them the special collection in the back room of the store, the door rang. It was Victoria Blake, the former sales manager of Brilliance. Mr. Johnson, she said in a timid voice, may I have a moment of your time? Richard looked at her, with an understanding expression on his face. Of course, Victoria. What happened? I left Brilliance, said Victoria. Actually, I was fired. After that day, Gregory didn't even want to speak to me. Lisa looked at her father, concern in her eyes. Richard nodded. I'm sorry to hear that. So what are you doing now? Victoria smiled slightly. I'm looking for a job. Actually, Rebecca is thinking of giving me a chance. Here, as a sales consultant. Rebecca stepped forward. Victoria told me everything, Richard. People make mistakes, but they deserve a chance to change. I made many mistakes myself, but someone gave me a second chance. Richard looked at Victoria. She looked very different from 6 months ago, now more humble, more sincere. What do you think, Lisa? He asked his daughter. Lisa thought for a moment. Everyone deserves a second chance, she finally said. Besides, she probably knows how to sell high-quality jewelry sometimes. Victoria smiled gratefully. Thank you, Lisa. That day, I behaved in a very shameful way. I was prejudiced against you, and it was completely wrong. Will you accept my apology? Lisa nodded. I accept. We all make wrong decisions sometimes. Richard extended his hand to Victoria. Let's look to the future instead of dwelling on the past. I wish you success at Rebecca's store. Victoria shook Richard's hand. Thank you, Mr. Johnson, and belated happy birthday. Rebecca smiled. Victoria's first task will be selecting the special pieces in the Novatech order. I'm giving her a chance because everyone can make mistakes, but what's important is learning from these mistakes. Victoria's eyes were filled with tears. 6 months ago, she was at the peak of her career. She was the sales manager of the most prestigious store on Rodeo Drive. Now she was starting over at a small boutique in Venice Beach. But strangely, she felt lighter, more free. I promise you, said Victoria, I will never again judge any customer by their appearance. Lisa, you taught me a very valuable lesson. Lisa smiled. I think we all learned something that day. Outside, the colorful crowd and fun atmosphere of Venice Beach was very different from the luxurious and ostentatious world of Beverly Hills. But perhaps true luxury lay in how you treated others and the respect you showed to the person in front of you. Richard hugged his daughter. You're like your mother, he said in a soft voice. She always saw the best in people, even when they couldn't see it themselves. Lisa rested her head on her father's shoulder. I hope so, Dad. I hope I can always be like her. As they left the store, the sun was about to set. The golden light over the ocean seemed to be blessing them. Richard and Lisa began walking along the beach. Father and daughter, two people who knew the true meaning of wealth and luxury, enjoying simple pleasures, knowing the value of life and each other. What did this story make you think about? Have you ever been judged by your appearance? Or perhaps you've judged others? Maybe the most valuable people are those who appear the simplest. Let's take a moment to consider where true value in life comes from. Does real wealth lie in our bank accounts or in the values we carry? If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to our channel and don't miss our other inspiring stories. Remember, sometimes you need to look beneath the surface to see true value. Where in the world are you watching from today? Share with us in the comments. And perhaps tomorrow, by approaching someone without prejudice, you could make a small but meaningful difference in their life.